Good evening. My name is Solomon Quick, and I am the Assistant Supervisor at Martin Luther King Community Recreation Center here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome you to our Black History Program, February 22nd, 2022. We think you'll enjoy it. We have done a lot of hard work in finding our great presenters, and I encourage everyone to learn more about the historical figures that we share with you. And we believe that history is being made every day. So we have living historical figures that will share with you about their experiences, their life, their inspiration, as much as they are true trailblazers in their own right. I'd like to also encourage our young people to create your own vision, dream big, work hard, and make those dreams reality. With that being said, we'll get started and hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much.
My dash began on August 31st, 1936. My name, Marva Dolores Knight. I am passionate about learning, and you may call me an innovator or a destined teacher. I was educated in Atmore, Alabama. During my early years, I attended a school where all of the students looked like me. There were very few resources for the teachers of African American students. Upon my graduation from Clark College in Atlanta with a bachelor's degree in secretarial science, I returned to Alabama in 1957, where I taught typing, shorthand, bookkeeping, and business law at the Monroe County Training School. In 1959, I took a job as a medical secretary at Mount Sinai Hospital in Chicago. I missed the interaction with the children. So in 1961, re-entered but I didn't have the proper certification. So I became a full-time substitute teacher. During the 14 years I was employed by Chicago's inner city schools, I encountered ineffective instructors and unmotivated students failing in an impersonal and politicized system. Several schools had been put on probation, and I requested to work with the schools that had the worst academics records and the worst parental involvement. In half a year, 2 out of the 3 schools with which I was working improved 85%. Unhappy with the Chicago public schools' low standards, I opened my own school in 1975. Teachers need nothing more than books, a blackboard, and a pair of legs that will last the day. It's what I told a reporter for the 50 Plus magazine. My father told me never presume that any task was too challenging for me to try, nor any concept too difficult for me to grasp. The name originally was the Daniel Hale Williams West Side Preparatory School, located in the basement of Daniel Hale Williams University. I invested $5,000, which I got from my pension, to get started. Shortly after the inception, I moved the school to the 2nd floor of our home, located in West Garfield Park, an impoverished neighborhood on Chicago's west side. My husband renovated a room to accommodate 20 students. from the ages of 4 to 14. My daughter and several neighborhood children who had been tagged with the title disruptive or unteachable were my first students. My plan worked. By the end of the first year, wouldn't you know it, that every last one of those students scored at least 5, yes, I said it, 5 grades higher on their standardized test. Being an outspoken critic of federal aid, I refused finances from the federal or corporate sources that might infringe on my independence. So my husband Clarence and I raised money for the development of the school by appealing for funds from local individuals, churches, and other organizations. The well-known artist Prince was one of my donors who became a co-founder and honorary chairman of the Collins National Teacher Training Institute. Now, this made it possible for me to retrain teachers using my methodology. By early 1980s, the school had moved into its own permanent facilities near our home and enrolled some 200 students under the staff of 5 teachers. I became nationally recognized, leading to being profiled by such TV shows as 60 Minutes, Good Morning America, as well as the Time and Newsweek magazines. A television movie entitled Marva Collins' Story was produced, and Cicely Tyson played my role. Presidents Ronald Reagan and George Bush offered me the position of Secretary of Education. Additionally, jobs such as county superintendent for the Los Angeles, California School District and a position as a school board member in Chicago were mine for the taking, but I turned them down to continue developing the West Side Preparatory School. Several schools were opened later, one in Wisconsin, and there was one in Civiltown, Ohio, near Cincinnati, and in Florida. I trained more than 100,000 teachers since opening the West Side Preparatory School. Additionally, I traveled to Africa with the Young Presidents Organization in order to spread my methodology to educators worldwide. Some awards that I received include Fred Hampton Image Award, Fred Hampton Foundation Award, Watson Washburn Award, and Reading Reform Foundation. I got both of those in 1979. West Garfield Image Award, Educator of the Year Award from Phi Delta Kappa, and the Chicago Urban League Award, the United Negro College Fund Award, Sears Week of the Child Award, and Sojourner Truth Award. I have honorary degrees from Howard University, Dartmouth University, Amherst, and Washington University. I received the Jefferson Award and the American Institute for Public Service Award in 1981. And topping those awards, I was named a Legendary Woman of the World by the city of Birmingham, Alabama in 1982. Before my dash ends, I would like to share a success story with you. Kevin Ross, a former Creighton University basketball star, came to the West Side Preparatory School in the fall of 1982 because he had not acquired basic education skills after 4 years in college. Working with Collins, Ross was able to double his reading and math scores and triple his language scores within 1 year. This was my goal. Well, that's my story. I passed away in June the 24th, 2015 in Beaufort County, South Carolina.
A moment in time where history calls them forth. Marva Collins' story exemplifies this in many ways. She was a bridge builder. Her efforts, her commitment enabled many to cross said bridge and exceed even their own expectations. One of said individuals is with us today, a trailblazer in her own right, a bridge builder in her own right. We have with us Miss Dee Todd. Miss Dee Todd, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And before I go on, Shirley, I'd just like to say to you that I knew Dr. Collins. I lived in Chicago for 14 years and had, many situations where we were together. So I enjoyed your presentation. My name is Dee Todd, and my first name is Dolores, which happens to be her middle name, which I didn't know that until you said that. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I was raised in Camden, New Jersey, which is right outside of Philadelphia. And I went to Camden High School, and I am a proud graduate of Winston-Salem State University, and I am in their Athletic Hall of Fame and was considered in one of their magazines one of the top 8 most influential people that ever attended Winston-Salem State. And that was for my Kellogg's box. But I'll go into that in just a second. But anyway, when I went to Winston-Salem State, I had been out of high school for 2 years. And I didn't think I wanted to go to college. As a matter of fact, I was a college prep major, but no one told me that was supposed to lead me to going to college. So I started skating with the now defunct roller derby with the Philadelphia Warriors. And I also didn't have any skills, so I worked in a factory, RCA, building radios and TVs and things. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, this is not really what I want to do. And the language that was being used in in the factories was just not the way I was raised. So after being out of school 2 years, the roller derby wanted me to sign a contract to say that I would stay with them for 2 years, which I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, so I didn't do it. Well, it was a good thing because it would have held me to that. I had a friend who had family who had gone to Winston-Salem, and at that time, back in the 60s, there weren't a whole lot of opportunities, to go. I was thinking of going to Cheney because that was close by, but they were having some accreditation problems, and so this friend of mine suggested Winston-Salem State, and I came there sight unseen, and that was the beginning of my wonderful life career, was being under Big House Gaines and being quote unquote one of his girls, and as a matter of fact, I married one of his boys, and I just was very close to him. I was in the room when he passed away, and I hold him near and dear to my heart. He made me tough. So when I graduated from Winston-Salem State, I went back to D.C. to see how it was, and I started teaching at a school called Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, which was the high school in the area where all of the senators and congressmen and ambassadors to the UN, that was the school their children went to. Needless to say, there were only 30 African-American students at that school. And so the first day I'm walking down the hall and all the teachers are speaking to me and I'm looking like I don't have a name tag on. How do they know my name? And when we got in the first staff meeting, they introduced new staff and I stood up and turned around and realized, ooh, I'm the only Black person in here. They knew I was coming. So I go onto my classroom and I was teaching biology and physical education. So 3 men came to the door. And they asked if I was Miss Green, and I said yes. And they said, well, we're United States Secret Service, and we're here to do a background check on you. And I said, background check? I said, I just got out of school. I don't have a background. And they said, well, you're going to have George McGovern's daughter, Mary, in your class. And he was the Democratic presidential candidate at that time and with all of the Watergate stuff. So little did I know that I was going to teach a part of history. I stayed there a year, moved to Chicago, and taught at 2 high schools. And every job that I had, I was either the first female or the first minority or both. I had a very successful teaching career and coaching career in 2 really large high schools in the Chicago area. Had 11 conference championships and multiple state championships, and one of the best athletes ever for women was Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and I had the one person that beat her in the state meet in Illinois. The only person that beat Jackie Joyner-Kersee was my girl to win the state championship. So I'm very proud of that, and of course I've known Jackie since she was in the 10th grade. Well, my goal was to always be an Olympic coach, and I thought that being a college coach was the road to becoming an Olympic coach. And so I was working on my master's. I ended up getting a master's in human relations and psychotherapy, and started working on my doctorate, which I finished all of the coursework. And at that time, I got an opportunity to interview to be the first head track and field coach at Northwestern University. So I interviewed, I got the job, but it was time for me to do a residency that would have taken me away for about, close to 6 months, if I recall. And I had the nerve to ask my supervisor if I could take off and make hold my job, and they said certainly not. So I made the choice, and I went on to be the coach at Northwestern. And to this day, I'm the only Black female in the history of Northwestern to have been a head coach. And it's only been 5 Black head coaches in Northwestern. 3 of them are deceased, and that was Dennis Green, Francis Pay, and Ricky Birdsong. And the current baseball coach there now is African American. So I pretty much started that program, was a 1983 Big Ten Cross Country Coach of the Year, and had, success there. And then I was recruited to come to Georgia Tech to do the same thing. And I went to Georgia Tech, and I became the first coach at Georgia Tech, as well as the first African-American coach of any sport, head coach in the ACC. And I was there and stayed a few years, was ACC Coach of the Year, Georgia State Coach of the Year several times. And then I was recruited to come to the Atlantic Coast Conference office to be an assistant commissioner. And I was the first female and the first person of color to hold that position, which I held that position for 17 years. And one of the things, a few things I'm very proud of, my main job was the director of championships and also to build women's basketball brand. In building women's basketball brand, I was influential in starting having a 3-person crew for women's basketball. Track and field obviously was my sport, but I'm in charge of basketball, and I'm looking at the women with 2 officials and the men had 3, and the men had a 35-second clock, I believe, and the women had a 30, and I'm like, something's wrong with this picture. And along came Marion Jones, who showed them just how fast women's basketball was, because she would inbound the ball and beat the ball to the person she was passing to. And so I was able to, with my counterpart in the Southeastern Conference, we were able to get the whole country to go to three-person officiating in women's basketball. There were so many things that happened at the ACC. I got a chance to start the baseball umpires program. I worked with 23 sports. I oversaw and directed 23 championships in 23 different sports. And I actually worked myself crazy. And if I had to go back and look at things, I would say, Dee Todd, take a vacation. Because when I had vacation time, I stayed home and got acquainted with my furniture, because I was gone so much that it was a pleasure just to be home. So after ACC, I went on to be the first female athletic director at North Carolina A&T. And that was an interesting job. And I think, if anything, that I was instrumental in bringing that new track that they have there. That's not new anymore, but I brought that track there. I was part of the design of that track, and brought the high school state championships there, which they still have there. So designed the scoreboard with the Aggie Paws. That's me. And had a great time, a great experience, and some not so great experiences, but that goes with the program. I would just like to say to the people that are listening to this, that a lot of people think that athletics is just sports, being either a player or a coach, but it is so many opportunities in athletics, and even more so today than when I was coming along. You can get into the sports medicine, you can get into the television aspect, the radio aspect. Everything that you see on TV, if you see a basketball game on TV, there are probably 100 people that in different roles that are responsible for that finished product that you see on TV. Those people that are behind the scenes, those people that make that happen. And right now, there's so many things that you could do in sports other than being a coach or a player. And I encourage people to look at some of those things and see what great opportunities there are in sports. And it's even greater now than when I was coming along. And I always and I'm still coaching. I'm retired, but I'm still coaching a high school team in Wake Forest, North Carolina, Heritage High School, and have bought them their first state champions. And I don't know why I'm still out there. I just left there today, but I enjoy it. And I think being around young people keeps you young and keeps you active and makes you understand, some of the things that they're going through, that this generation is very different. And I bring a little bit of the old school to them, particularly the discipline aspect, being accountable, being on time. If you're on time, you're late, and if you're late, just stay home, don't even come. If you miss the bus, you miss the bus. So, and our kids need that nowadays. They're just not disciplined. And all of the teachers in the schools, they say, we can always tell the track kids, because they're always making sure they're where they're supposed to be. They say, you don't know Coach Todd. Yeah, we're going to do that. So it's just so many wonderful things that you can do in athletics. And it has basically taken me around the world. I have been to every continent except Antarctica. I have been to every state in the United States except South Dakota. Don't ask me how I skipped over that one, but I haven't been to South Dakota. But it has taken me, I have coached 3 World Track and Field Championships, 1 Olympic Games, several small teams that would take you places like Venezuela. I've been to Latvia, Lithuania, Croatia, the Czech Republic. All of those places, athletics has taken me. And it's nice to be able to go see those places on somebody else's dime, and they're places that you wouldn't ordinarily think about going. So I feel very privileged to have been able to do those things. And so I would just like to tell the people that are listening to this is that you have great role models out here now. When I was coming along, I didn't have anyone that looked like me. And it's really hard to be what you can't see. And I'm glad that I was able to provide an opportunity for young people and young people of color in particular to see that you can be this if you want to. You can do this if you want to. And I tell my athletes, don't make excuses. Excuses are tools used by losers. You never see anybody winning making up excuses. And so we teach those lessons, we live by those lessons, and I think that's probably all that I would want to share is that you can be all that you can be. Oh, Mr. Brother Solomon, there's one thing I forgot to add that I think
Yes.
folks would like to see is that I am the first female, I'm the first female that's ever been pictured on a Kellogg's cornflakes box.
Yes, please. Yes, ma'am. Talk about that.
And and that was done out of Chicago in 1980. And it's still, of course, it's not on the market now, but it's still something that people kind of get a kick out of. And it was a kind of accident. I didn't know how big it would be until much later. But yes, I am the first Black female to be featured on the Kellogg's Cornflakes box.
And we are sure that individuals such as Michael Jordan and LeBron James, as many resources that they have accrued by their endorsements, look to you and say thank you for being such a trendsetter, for being such a trailblazer. Thank you for making sure we got that, Ms. Dee Todd. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Going forward, we would like to have you lean back into history just a little bit. Lean back into an individual that was known as Stagecoach Mary Fields. Some of you may know her or have just recently heard her name in the latest movie starring Idris Elba and Regina King. But I don't want to get too far into that. I'm going to let our own representative of Miss Mary Fields, Stagecoach Mary Fields, get us into what she was about. Miss Shay King.
My name is Miss Mary Fields. And you may know me as Stagecoach Mary or Black Mary. And I am the first African-American female star route mail carrier in the United States. And apparently I stood out on the trail and became a wild, wild West legend. So follow me as I give you guys a brief journey of who I am and the impact that I made on history. Little is known about me, Mary Fields, because I was born into slavery. And as you all know, during that time of slavery, as it relates to individuals being born, there was no such thing as record keeping for us. So as it relates to my exact birthplace and exact date, I am unsure of that myself. But what I do know that I was born in 1832 in Hickman County, Tennessee. And I gained my freedom shortly after the Civil War, and I started working on some river steamboats on the Mississippi River, and I ventured up into the north and settled into Ohio, and I served as a housekeeper for Judge Edmund Dunn and his family. He was married to a wife, and they had 5 children together, and I was a servant for them and a housekeeper, and I took care of their home and their 5 children. Unfortunately, his wife fell ill and passed away, and the judge decided to send myself and his 5 children to live with his sister, who was a mother superior at a Toledo, Ohio, Ursuline convent. So at that convent, I was a groundskeeper with the family, and I became close with the nuns. However, in 1894, the bishop grew upset with me. The bishop grew upset with me because, see, I'm a tall woman. I'm about 6 foot, about 200 pounds, and I just have a temperament that some just don't care for. And the bishop barred me from the covenant after several complaints of my habit of profanity, because, you know, I had some things to say and some people didn't like the way I said them or what I said. And inappropriate gunplay. I got into a little scuffle or argument with one of the male groundskeepers, and we just happened to, you know, I'm into guns and he's into guns, and we pulled our guns out on each other, unfortunately. And the bishop didn't take too kind to that. So he decided to do away with me in 1894. And I eventually made my way to Cascade, Montana, and I opened a saloon. And unfortunately, that saloon closed in about 10 months due to bankruptcy, because with my kind heart, I was allowing those who were poor and homeless to eat for free. I donned the name Stagecoach Mary, or Black Mary, as you may hear me referred to as, around the age of 60, when I became the first African-American star route mail carrier to deliver mail in the extreme weather and the rocky terrains of Montana for the U.S. Postal Service. I made my way to Montana to take care of my good friend at the Covenant when she fell ill. And with her assistance, she pretty much helped me take on this role as a mail carrier for the United States Postal Service with her help. And with her help, she gave me a stagecoach to where I was able to get a mule named Moses, and Moses and I rode on out and carried the mail all across the terrain in rain, sleet, or snow. So as a star route carrier, my job was an independent contractor. I carried mail using my stagecoach that was gifted to me. And my job was basically to protect the mail on my route. See, during that time in 1895, we had individuals like thieves and bandits who were trying to steal the mail, as well as, you know, creatures like wolves and everything who just wanted to eat poor Moses. But I became Stagecoach Mary as well as Black Mary, because I never missed a day delivering the mail, no matter what. And I was also known for carrying multiple firearms and other weapons to protect myself from those thieves and bandits, and of course those wolves I encountered along the way. But nonetheless, I was always on time with the mail. The thieves were intimidated by my tall 6-foot frame, while the youth and locals of Cascade praised me for my generosity and kindness. I delivered and protected the mail for a good 8 years before I decided to retire in 1903. I was 71 years old. I couldn't keep going out there on the stagecoach and carrying all those mails and everything. I had to relax and retire then. So I decided to retire in good old Cascade, where I was loved and cared for by the local townspeople and the children, and they respected me. I was very well known in that small town, and I was a very respected public figure. Shoot, every year on my birthday, the schools even closed. So that's a great thing. That was an honor to me. And unfortunately, I grew ill. And as I was growing ill, I was still taking care of the children and babysitting and just making sure that I was just doing my part in society by lending my kind hand. My home even caught fire at one point in time, and the local people respected me and loved and cared for me so much that they even rebuilt my home. But in December 5th, 1914, I passed away in the local hospital in Great Falls, Montana. My funeral was the largest gathering that the town of Cascade had ever witnessed. And I was buried right outside of Cascade. You may have seen me depicted in several films. One of the most upcoming ones was The Harder They Fall, which is a Netflix movie. But up until recently in the 21st century, individuals had no idea who I was. So I am so thankful for these filmmakers and these movies and these researchers for doing their part and finding out who I am. And once again, my name is Mary Fields, AKA Stagecoach Mary or Black Mary.
It was once said that all history is a current event. What happened 5,000 years ago affects what's happened 500 years ago, which affects what happened 50 years ago, which affects what's happened 5 minutes ago. In the spirit of said statements, we would like to introduce you to a modern day cowboy from the Old West inspiration that we just heard about, Stagecoach Mary Fields. May I introduce to you and to all in our community, Mr. Bo Gilliam. Mr. Gilliam, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Bo Gilliam, and I am from Spartanburg, South Carolina. I am the oldest of six brothers and sisters. I was raised by my grandparents, Maddie and Ike Gilliam. We were so poor that I figured an Ethiopian kid had my picture in their back pocket. We grew up with no running water. We grew up with no toilet, indoor toilet. As I think about Astasia, sometimes it's too painful to remember, but I will never forget. My grandparents did raise me. My mother had me at age 15. We was more like brothers and sisters for a long time. My grandparents was hardworking people. My grandfather could not spell his name, but he was a great role model. And he took me in. He made me the man that I am now, him and my grandmother. And as I take my mental flight back, I think about the times where I don't know how we made it, but my grandma was a praying woman and she had faith. And as I go back to Astasia, I was a pretty good athlete, played football, ran track, played basketball. And I could see myself when nobody else could. I was black, I was nappy headed. We used to stutter. Me and my cousin had our own language. We used to stutter so bad and talk so fast. They were like, hey, those Gilliam, they're in a league of their own. But by the grace of God, we did pretty good. And I am grateful. I received a football scholarship at Winston-Salem State in 1975. When I signed my contract, people were like, well, Bo's a good football player, but he will never make it. There's no way in the world this guy would make it to college. But God had a different idea. And I had a vision. Like the Bible says, old men and women dream, young men and women have visions. And I always had a vision. I could see myself looking out of the dorm. I could see myself playing football. I could see myself doing this and doing that. Now, it took me 5 years to graduate, but I am so grateful to God that I didn't quit. I almost bailed out, but I was like, well, if I bail out, then I would prove all those folks back home, he would never be nothing. There's no way this guy would be successful, but God had a different plan for me. I met my wife on campus. We've been married now for like 43 years, and I am grateful for her. Um, I worked with Orkin Pest Control, and that's where I found myself. I've been in pest control business now for 43 years, and I started out with $25. Now we're in 3 states, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. So we cover wide territory. They all go back to a vision. I have a vision. Now, I live in Yacksonville, North Carolina, where I have a horse ranch. We grew up with horses. My uncle, Ross Gilliam, bought us a pony, and everybody was afraid to ride that pony except me. And I think about Astasia, I used to ride that thing up and down the road. I wasn't afraid of it. And that taught me to wear boots. I began to wear boots and cowboy hats. And That's my thing, boots and cowboy hats. And we have a 98-acre ranch. And I could see myself before I even bought this ranch, horses on one side, cows on the other side. I had that vision. So um, I had like 200 head of cattle. Now I have 3 horses. Um, I have the third most beautiful horse in the world. They're called Frisians. They are jet black, long mane, long frontal, and a long tail. Now, Frisians are big black animals. They're huge, but they're gentle. Horses are real spooky. Any little thing can spook a horse. People don't realize that. By being so big, they are spooky. And um, I had to learn my horse's disposition. Every horse is different. You got different kind of dogs, different breeds of cats. You also have different breeds of horses. Frisians are considered as a quarter horse. They have 3 gaits. They walk, run, and trot. They have 3 gaits. Um, but they are huge and they are very intimidating to people. So every morning, I get some folks have dogs and cats. I have to feed my horses. I have to give them fresh water. I have to groom them. Um, Friesians are black, so they attract heat. In the summertime, they need special attention. That breed originated in Harlem. Um, so that's a cold climate. So when it's hot outside, I bring them in, and if not, they can get exhausted and they can sweat. They can sometimes panic, and they can sometimes be an issue for a black horse. So um, the white guys were considered as the cattlemen. The black guys was considered as the cowboys. So I always consider myself as a cattleman. Um, Now, when we ride, we get all kind of attention. So it ain't like you are in a Western movie where a horse can run and run and run for hours. That's not true. They might can run for maybe a half mile. Then you have to let them walk. So I ride every chance I get. It's relaxing. And when you're dealing with horses, equestrians, you have to be calm. They make you be calm. If you go around a horse and you're all uptight and you're mad about an issue, a horse can sense it. And they'll start to moving around. They're like, hey, this guy's gonna hurt me or whatever. But they make you relax. And when you ride on a horse trail, it's open sky, it's the horse, yourself, and God. And the horse has to trust you. Wherever you point his head, that's where it's going to go. So the horse depends on the rider to tell it what to do. You can't make a horse do anything that it does not want to do. If a horse don't want to cross a creek, you can't make it cross a creek. If the horse don't want to see something that spooks it, you have to be calm, stroke it, be gentle with that animal. Then let it trust you. Sometimes you may have to dismount to get the horse to do what you want it to do, like cross a creek or go across a railroad track or cross a road. Anything can spook it. But if the horse feel like, hey, my master is in control. I trust my master, and normally they would do what you wanted to do. So my horses are gentle. Thank God they don't kick, they don't bite, because they are what you call full-blooded. They're not a nag. A nag is a horse that's been mixed with all kind of stuff. Mine are thoroughbreds. So I love it. I look forward to it. People see us in homecoming, at A&T State, Winston-Salem State. We ride everywhere. And we have a group called the East Coast Riders. Every weekend, starting next month, there's a horse trail ride on the East Coast somewhere. And we have over 300 Black, white, Hispanic, male, female, um, Black, white, Hispanic, male, female, all kind of riders, and we have a ball. And you meet doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, all kind of people. And but horses are beautiful. I think they're a God-gifted man. They've been around forever. I love it. That made me the man who I am, and I am grateful to God for everything. Closing note is that I dream big. I ask the universe for big things. And I believe if you do that, if you ask the universe for a mule, you probably get a mule. If you ask it for a donkey, you're going to get a donkey. I ask the universe for Frisians, the third most beautiful horse in the world. And I am grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, I'm speechless. Not just for Mr. Bo Gilliam, but for all of my presenters, all of your examples. I want to thank Professor Shirley Kendall, who introduced us to Miss Marva Collins. I want to thank Miss Dee Todd for being so inspirational, for being such a trailblazer, for being such a living, breathing role model. And I want to thank you for the young people that you continue to feed into and who are always going to remember Coach Todd. I know you have many, many quotes, and they are going to say your quotes until. So thank you. Ms. Shay King, we want to thank you greatly for introducing to many Stagecoach Mary Fields. So little was known about her until recently. And we will look forward to learning more and more about her. I know you had to narrow it down to the time allotted, and there's a lot more that you could have shared with us about her. So thank you for giving us what you gave us with regard to Stagecoach Mary Fields. Mr. Bo Gilliam, what can we say? Thank you for being a visionary. Thank you for dreaming big. Thank you for the example that you give and that you continue to give so many of our young people. And I'll say it on air because I really, really mean it. Mr. Bo Gilliam will always have a special place in my heart because he has said to me, for those who don't know, I do run a summer camp here at Martin Luther King Community Recreation Center for young people ages 6 to 10 or 11 years old. Mr. Bo Gilliam has invited my summer campers to come to his ranch this summer and be exposed to all of what he has out there. We're still working out the logistics, Mr. Gilliam, but we look forward to making our way out there.
I look forward to it.
I want to thank you in advance for giving us that potential opportunity. With that being said, community Winston-Salem, Forsyth County community, city of Winston-Salem. My name is Solomon Quick, and I am the assistant supervisor of Martin Luther King Community Recreation Center. And I would like to thank you for taking a little time out of your schedule to take time to view our Black History program for February 22nd, 2022. With that being said, blessings to all and have a good night.
Thank you, sir.